So the media wants you to believe, the Democrat corporate media wants you to think that they speak truth to power, that their job is journalism, and that they're hoping to inform you without fear or favor, yada, yada, et cetera, et cetera. We all know that's not the case. And in recent years, it has become even more clear that that is not the case, that is not reality. That is not what is going on. And there are some instances of it where you really get to see a little bit of how the journo sausage is made. And we have to tip our hat here to Mr. Dave Portnoy, who, like Clay, is a sports world man, comes from the world of sports, and is the founder of Barstool Sports. Now, there's a hit, and Clay will fill in any of the details here that I might be missing that are relevant, but there's a event he's doing in a couple of days. And Clay, you're going to reach out. We'll see if Dave wants to come on, maybe. We'll see if he wants to come talk to us.
I'll text him and see if he wants to come on tomorrow. I was waiting to see, and I just checked his Twitter feed, if the Washington Post has reached out any more so. There is no update other than what we're about to play for you, except that they canceled their interview. And this is, I think, so instructive. If you're a kid out there and you're wondering, like you said it, how the sausage gets made, how does a story come to be written?
Yeah.
This is kind of taking you into the weeds a little bit.
And one of the things that I've seen before, for example, is, you know, a journalist will reach out to someone who's a target because of their ideology. Let's understand this. You are targeted now for ideological reasons by these journos. And you'll have somebody who says, or, you know, they'll put something out that says, well, we didn't get a comment from you. And the person will actually call them out publicly, and it'll come out that, yeah, they sent a LinkedIn message request like 2 hours before. Oh, that's the only way we could find you. I don't know about you. If you send me a LinkedIn message request, I may get to it in about 10 years, right? Like I don't
know how to get online.
Yeah, like, well, that's what I mean. You know,
I still have
you
one.
could send me a Friendster message. I think, is that website even, that doesn't exist anymore, right? But you know what I'm saying? You could send me an AOL instant message or something, and guess what? I'm not going to get it. But they do that so they can say, well, we tried, and they can just run with the story. So there's a lot of tricks that they pull. I've also learned, people ask me this, they'll say, well, will you speak to what I would call regime media? Because not really anymore, but back in the day, they used to reach out to me occasionally for comment on different like terrorism-related things when I was doing a lot of that work and counterterrorism analysis. And I learned the answer, Clay, is no, because if you're giving them a quote, they can introduce the quote as, you know, right-wing lunatic who always makes stuff up, Buck Sexton says this. And you're like, why am I giving them, you know, if they're going to say that anyway, you guys see how some of this goes. So Dave Portnoy figured out that the Washington Post was planning to do, well, what they did was they sent an email out, right, to his sponsors for his event on Saturday. And the email says something like, well, here, Dave recorded his conversation with this reporter. Here is how it went. Play the clip.
If you don't have your opinion made of me, how do you say in an intro email, Dave Portnoy has a history of misogenic comments and other problematic behavior? That's how you introduce the email.
Yeah. So look, I just want you to know that this is not, I want to talk to you about this, but
don't you think you should talk to me before sending that email? Have you made your mind up about me?
We're in the reporting phase. I can't, not for me to say, and I'm working with somebody else.
But that seems like a pretty straightforward question. That, have you made your mind up about me? If you can't answer that, no.
I can say I have not made my mind up about you.
Then why would you include that in the email to sponsors?
Because I was hoping for a dialogue with them. You know, sometimes you have to say something like, this is like, you know, it's sort of a reporting tactic. When you want someone to respond, you kind of have to indicate that there might be something negative, and then you get them to engage. That's all I was trying to do. I really wanted them to engage with me.
That is a sad state of journalism.
Wow. Right?
That's well cut. That's well cut by Greg, I think, here on the staff. Who, I mean, you can go watch that, Buck. I was just looking. Over 30 million people have watched he recorded his entire conversation with this Washington Post reporter who, as you can hear in that comment, had been sending out emails saying, basically to any advertiser, why are you working with this misogynistic individual? And basically trying to shame the advertiser for being involved. And by the way, you might be wondering what's going on. It's a pizza festival. So this is not like, it's a freaking pizza festival. It's not like he's putting on a get out the vote, like New York.
Or, secure the border, build the wall.
Yeah.
It's
a pizza festival. So the idea that you would be saying how in the world can, but this is important, Buck, because you know this, but I think a lot of our listeners don't necessarily. This is what the Washington Post and the New York Times have become. They basically are the attack dog of left-wing organizations. Remember when they named us, what did they name us? The third biggest purveyor of misinformation.
COVID misinformation, yes.
And we invited the people on who did the study, and they refused to come on.
If there's another pandemic, we're coming for you, Steve Bannon. We're going to catch you.
And then we invited, the New York Times had a front page article about it, and we invited the writer of the New York Times article to come on. If you really thought that we were massive purveyors of misinformation, wouldn't you want to come talk to this audience? But no, what it's designed to do, and look, I've seen this happen with YouTube, I've seen this happen with everybody, is they want to scare businesses away from being associated with people whose opinions they don't like. And instead of writing a story where it could just be like, hey, I disagree with your opinions, and being fair and impartial as a journalist should be, hey, here's what this person has said, here's what they've done, give us a full-throated understanding of somebody. What they're trying to do is write and shame these advertisers and get them to pull out because they want these companies to be terrified because their PR team's going to be like, the Washington Post just wrote a negative article about us. What in the world are we going to do? And here he flips the script and goes to them directly beforehand. And the other thing I would say, Buck, is I've had the same issue with the Washington Post. I've had issues with organizations. Ask them to put their questions in writing for you. It's amazing how rarely they're willing to do that. If you think somebody's going to write something negative about you and you're out there listening to us right now and they contact you and they want to comment, say, yeah, can you write your questions and I'll respond to them in writing? Because then you have a record of exactly what you're responding if you want to respond at all. But you also then have all of their questions and a record of them instead of, and I got to tell you, everybody, if you talk to somebody for 20 minutes and they take a sentence out of whatever 20 minutes you said, they can make you seem whatever they want. It's just not a fair and impartial piece of journalism.
I also think it's funny when she says, sometimes you basically just have to say something kind of crazy to get a response. It's like you're maligning someone's character. I mean, you're going after a person, and going after sponsors is a particularly pernicious way to do journalism, because you're not just saying this is my opinion of someone. You're obviously trying to pull their business model, and it's gross. We don't go after people's sponsors here. We don't try to get rid of people's business models. Look, people revolted against the Bud Light campaign. That wasn't, that happened. We weren't saying, oh, do this or do that. That's just the reality of how people responded to Bud Light and that trans influencer. But there's something really deeply, something really underhanded about the way an organization like the Washington Post would set this up. And I think that Portnoy was able to expose it so that people can see you can't trust them. I mean, I wouldn't sit down, if I could tape the whole thing, maybe I'd sit down and talk to the Washington Post and the New York Times. But even still, they're just going to do a hit piece on you. I mean, do you remember was it the Times that did all the stuff on Tucker? It was like front page.
Oh, yeah, front page newspaper.
Front page hit pieces on Tucker. And everybody who knew Tucker or liked Tucker read them. They're like, wait, what? Like, what is this? Well, how is this even news or front page? But for the Democrat movement, the New York Times thought that they could be engaged in a useful character assassination. And that's what they do. And it's some people they'll withstand it and it's fine, but sometimes it has real consequences and it's harmful. So this stuff is not without victims in a sense, especially when they're being unfair, when they're pretending to be something that they're not, right? When they're deciding that they're going to write a certain kind of narrative. I think it's disgraceful. So, props to Portnoy here.